Stephan Bonnar here alongside Mr. Odds, Matthew Holt. We're all pumped up for this UFC Fight Night 120 from Norfolk, Virginia. And I'd say the name of this, kind of the name of game for this fight night is the UFC trying to get the old dogs out of there. It's like, let's take these old dogs and get them one more loss so we can cut them and save some money, bring in some fresh blood.
But at least they, at least in this card, look, they were going veteran versus veteran and not putting 22-year-olds against 40. You know, feeding them to the wolves. Yeah.
Speaking of Bellator, we have a very special guest, a guy that made us some money.
Made us some money, yeah.
A Bellator fighter. He's 7-1 in Bellator, if I have that correct. Mr. Ryan Quinn from American Top Team. Thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Hey, gentlemen. Thanks for having me. Happy to finally get on.
So look, congrats on the big win. You know, we were excited. We thought it was a big mismatch in your favor. A guy who didn't have the experience to really hang with you on the ground, on the feet. And I thought you showed that in the, in the cage. And now you're 7-1 in Bellator and looking to bigger things. We had a little call out on the show last week. What about what's happening with maybe a fight with you and Mr. Ryan Couture?
Well, I take pride in being the best Ryan in mixed martial arts, so that's why I'm kidding. But, what do you call it? No, that's a fight that I always wanted, especially now, like, I'm 8-1 with Bellator. I saw one last night ranked me in the top 10.
Wait, so you're 8-1 in Bellator? I had that wrong?
Sorry, say that again?
You're 8-1 in Bellator.
Yes.
You had that wrong. Okay, I apologize. But how's that going with Ryan Couture? I know we called him out on the show, and do you hear anything back yet from Bellator or Scott Coker, or do you need his number?
No, his number would help. I don't have his number, but I did speak with them. They said that they'll talk to me when they come down here for Homestead. They're coming down for next week for the event, and they're doing like a NASCAR, like a mini fight card, and they're gonna come down. They said we'll talk then. So I guess just be patient. But I'm still knocking on doors and sending messages and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely a fight that I want. It's a fight that I always wanted. Even when he was over there with the other guys, I always wanted that fight.
The closed mouth don't get fed, and I can't think of a reason why they wouldn't do that fight. I think it's a great matchup, so best of luck with that, and for any reason you don't get it, or they're just, I don't know, just let me know, and I'll get up their asses.
So for all those people
thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Look, Ryan, you got our support 100%. For all those people that don't know about how famous that gym down there at American Top Team in Florida is right now. You guys got 3 fighters training down there on the UFC card this week. Tell us and the listeners what it's been like training and getting ready and watching guys like Dustin Poirier get ready for a UFC main event. And Nina Arnautoff getting ready for her fight and watching Andre train for a big fight. What's that like training with those guys that you've seen being former world champions, guys main eventing big cards?
Well, yeah, let's start with Dustin Poirier. How's he looking? What's the game plan?
What's the game plan?
Well, the game plan is not up for discussion, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But I love training with Dustin. He's one of my main training partners out here. And you talk about all business, and that's Dustin Poirier. You see that picture in the definition next to that's the definition in the dictionary. Because he works his ass off, and he's like one of those people when you don't think he could look any better, he just somehow looks twice as better as he did the last fight. It's amazing. It's like after every fight, I'm like, damn man, it's like the guy's head was a beach ball. You couldn't miss. Like he just puts together, his like wherever like he has holes, he dissects it and just gets down, and then damn, it's his strength all of a sudden. It's the craziest thing.
See,
Nina. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think this fight's kind of looking to who's hungrier, who wants it more. And Pettis, I don't know. I think he's kind of apex, hit the top of his potential, his career, and his last couple fights he hasn't looked so motivated. And Dustin, though, I'm not, I'm not sure. He's won 5 of his last 6, and he's looked great lately.
Yeah.
Man, I think that I really like Dustin in this fight. It's just, like you said about Pettis, yeah, like, it's not like Pettis is an old man either. I feel like he's just not the same fighter that he was, and I just think that Dustin, he had that little blemish against Michael Johnson, but he's on the up and up, and he shows it all the time. He's willing to learn, and he just pieces things together, and I really like Dustin in this fight.
I mean, I like the professionalism, and I like to hear that Dustin's hitting the gym that hard, because it's unfortunate the way his last fight ended with Eddie. You train so hard for a fight, you get a fight against a former UFC lightweight champion of the world, and it ends in a no contest. Yeah,
I was about to say.
And those things can be discouraging. These training camps are long. They take a lot of energy. You get there, it's big fight night. Fight ends in a no contest.
And that was for like an illegal knee, right?
Yeah, but that was basically almost a #1 contender fight. If Dustin would have won,
I don't see why they didn't play that back.
Well, then they gave Eddie that TV spot with Justin Gaethje.
Oh, that's right. And he got beat. All right, moving on. Andre Arlovsky, Junior Albini. I love finding dogs to bet on. I worry about Andre's chin. He's lost his last 5 fights. How hungry is he? But that kind of answers my question, that he moved camps. Is he a hungry, rejuvenated Arlovsky? This Junior Albini's a young guy, but he's not a world beater. Most of his wins by submission. He's 1-0 in the UFC. He will win over Timothy Johnson, a TKO win. But like I said, I think he's better on the ground. He has a really good head kick, but I think Andre's hands are better. I'm looking for a reason to bet Andre. How's his chin looking in training?
Well, on top of changing gyms, he's there every day. It's not like, you see some of these older guys, they do 2 good days, they take 2 days off. He's there every day working, and, he's getting his wrestling in with Steve Mocco and Mo. He's sparring with Mo. He's sparring with a lot of the bigger guys. And, he's moving around. He still moves. Andre always had really good boxing, and he still got it. So, I like Andre in this fight, just making this dude throw fits. I think he's going to make this guy beat himself.
Yes, I think I might just put a little play on him. Junior Albini's got a lot of hype going, but really he hasn't faced top-level competition yet, and there's a lot of unknowns about him. And, I used to train with Andre, so I look for a reason to bet him. And against Ngannou, I probably didn't have that reason. I fabricated one. But against this guy, I'm going to put a little play on him. Last but not least, we got Nina Ansaroff versus Angela Hill. Angela Hill, 2-1 favorite in this fight, but Nina's tough.
They're both tough. These are 2 tough girls.
Yeah,
right here.
Angela, first or second fight in the UFC against Jessica Andrade.
Yeah.
Fought her tough.
And she fought a tough resume in Invicta, too.
And I think Nina's better on the ground. Angela, I think, is a little physically stronger. How do you see this one playing out?
I don't really know much about the other girl, but I know a lot about Nina's improvement in the last 6 months or so, and she's just skyrocketed, and she's excited about it too. It's one thing to be getting better and being like, whatever, but she's in the gym, she's having fun, she's pumped, and you just see it on a daily basis, the improvement, the upgrade that she's been showing. And it's to the point where she's been training with the girls, and if they can't, you're saying that this girl is strong, they had to have a couple of the smaller guys come in and train to try and take her down and stuff, because she's just showing the takedown defense and stuff like that. So I like Nina against a wrestler.
Excellent.
Nice.
Is that a dog you might play, Matt?
We'll get into it in a little while. I don't want to bag on any of Ryan's teammates. Well, we got them on the line.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. Yeah, they are teammates too. They are teammates. No, I like our chances.
All right, Ryan Quinn,
ATT hat trick this weekend, 3-0.
Quinn, ATT.
Ryan, are they putting your picture on the wall down there yet?
Is Dan Lambert putting your picture up?
Good question. Next time, Stephan, next time you're in there with Dan and the guys, you ask them for me or something. Next time you're in the impact zone.
Well, I think before the Ryan Couture fight, you make a little deal. You put a whooping on Ryan Couture. You get at least a small picture up on the wall.
You mean like an employee of the month style picture, like behind the water cooler?
Yeah, anything. A 3x5. Come on, man. But Ryan, appreciate you joining us, and we're going to be pulling for you to get that fight with Ryan Couture. And best of luck. Keep campaigning.
At Mighty Quinn, ATT, Ryan Quinn. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, guys. Hey, thanks for having me on. I can't wait to come on again.
All right,
thanks,
take care,
buddy.
Later, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Or afternoon. Bye.
All right. Main event. Dustin Poirier versus Anthony Showtime Pettis. Poirier has some momentum. He's been the one who has been hot lately. But Anthony Pettis, former champion, you know, it's like I like betting on the guys with momentum. Pettis hasn't impressed me much lately. He's been like unmotivated. What is one win in the last, 5 fights or so? Is that guillotine over the Brazilian guy?
Charles Oliveira.
Charles Oliveira, yes. Who do you like in this fight, man?
I want to find a reason to bet Dustin Poirier here because he's more exciting, he's fun to watch, he's younger. I want to get behind him in this fight. But when I look at the resumes here, so Dustin Poirier is just absolutely dominated and crushed guys outside the top 15. And then he jumps into those big fights. Bam, fight versus Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier sleeping. Bam, win a bunch of fights in a row. Boom, get a fight with Michael Johnson. Boom, Dustin Poirier sleeping. Win a couple fights in a row. Beat Bobby Green. Beat Jim Miller in a close decision. Get another fight versus Eddie Alvarez. Boom, second round. Look, I get that it was an illegal knee, but he was awful close to sleeping there too.
That's true. Good point. Now, the common opponent is Jim Miller. And how do you compare the way Pettis fought Jim Miller to the way Poirier fought him?
Jim Miller beat the crap out of Dustin Poirier's leg in that fight. I mean, he kicked his leg so many times in the first round alone, Poirier was limping the whole fight. Whereas Pettis dominated Jim Miller. And they both fought him recently, within the last couple of years. So you have a pretty good baseline there of, hey, we both fought this guy. We both fought him in the last couple of years with him in the same basic spot. One guy dominated him, one limped to the finish line and earned a decision that was disputable.
Yeah, see, I'm looking for an excuse to bet Showtime Pettis. I'm a Rufus Sport guy. I remember when Pettis was like 13 years old training at Duke Rufus is when I first went up there. Former champion, and you know what? I look at that fight with Miller. Pettis definitely did better with him, but the guy who has the momentum is Dustin Poirier, and I'm just hoping Pettis is driven, motivated, and his best tools are his kicks. And like you said, Poirier doesn't check kicks too well, and if he could beat up that leg, Pettis is, more so than Miller, more likely to go upstairs or even to the body like he did with Donald Cerrone.
And I have a feeling, look, Pettis was on such a rush. We're talking about a guy that beat Benson Henderson twice when Benson was at his apex, beat Cowboy Cerrone, beat Jeremy Stevens, beat Gilbert Melendez when he was in his prime. Anthony Pettis is the real deal. His resume's Hall of Fame caliber. Former UFC lightweight champion. You get all the guys he names, you're like, oh yeah. I mean, he did it. And then I feel like where the problem started for Anthony Pettis was he went on that streak of fighting wrestle-based guys. First it was Dos Anjos, then it was Eddie Alvarez who kept him against the cage the whole time. And then all of a sudden he felt like he couldn't get off his strikes anymore because he didn't want to get wrestled down. Smothered. And he was a different guy in the striking.
That's right. Edson Barbosa, one of the best kickboxers in the division, really great hands. He had lost the decision to him, but I think this is going to be a kickboxing match. I don't see Poirier.
That's right.
Trying his wrestling.
Both of them are good at submissions in the scramble.
Yes.
But they would both prefer to stand and trade.
Yeah, I don't see Poirier going for takedowns too much. And I think this fight's going to be contested for the most part on its feet. And I worry about guys with really good heavy hands with Anthony Pettis because he is more of a kicker. And Poirier, although he has good hands, isn't that power puncher that gets me worried. So I think I'm going to make a little play on Showtime.
I am as well, and I didn't want to say it with his American Top Team teammate on the line, Ryan Quinn, but I feel like anything less than -140, the value is with Anthony Pettis here.
All right, the co-main event, Diego Sanchez against Matt Brown, and it is. Let's get these old guys out of here. It's like put the old guys up, and I guarantee you, the old guy that loses is going to get cut.
Well, Matt Brown already announced his retirement period.
Well, he announced it last fight.
Yeah, it's true.
You know?
He did.
And really,
That's true.
I love Diego, but this isn't the same Diego. I mean, it's kind of time to hang up the gloves. I hate to say it. Like, Diego was fighting 170 for a long time. I remember back when he fought Nick Diaz at 170 and mauled him. But this isn't that same Diego Sanchez. This is a guy that's actually went down to 145 and like didn't look too good there and went back up to 155. The guy has been knocked out a couple times, Joe Lauzon and Alia Quinta, and now he's going up to 170.
He was known for that granite chin, and
great chin.
when you've been
And now
knocked
his
out
chin's
twice,
going.
yeah.
And he's fighting Matt Brown, who's a big, strong welterweight, who's been fighting. He actually used to fight at 85 and been fighting at 170 for a long time. Diego was at 145, comes up to 155. Now he's jumping up to 170. He's not going to have the strength he did when he was younger. If this fight happened back in 2005-06, Diego in a heartbeat. But I don't think he's going to be strong enough to take Matt Brown down. And on the feet, Matt Brown has a huge advantage.
And Diego doesn't hurt anybody. His submissions aren't good.
His submissions are good.
The last
His
time
wrestling
Diego
isn't that good.
Sanchez finished a fight, June 22nd, 2008. It has been almost a decade, folks, since Diego Nightmare Sanchez picked up a win by stoppage.
So how does Diego win this fight? I don't know. And
He hasn't stopped anyone in a decade.
at minus 320, I don't think that's too bad of a price for Matt Brown.
Yeah, I agree that there's only one way to bet this fight.
Up to minus 350 right now. So.
Yeah, there's still only one way to bet this fight. But the other problem on the only thing that scared me, and it was the fact that Matt Brown's become a little chinny. He's lost both of his last fights by knockout. He was always the Arturo Gatti of the welterweight division.
All right, chinny when like Cerrone
34-second knockout.
Cerrone flushed him.
Last two fights in a row knockout.
With a shin full force.
Yeah.
Like a shin full force. It's not like getting clipped with a little punch.
Yeah.
And what's the other knockout now?
What was his last fight before that? He got knocked out as well. I think it was Jake Ellenberger, who he was a big favorite against.
Yeah, but that was a body kick.
Yeah.
So I think his chin's all right. There's not too many people who could take it. And he was ducking into that Cerrone left high kick. He ducked right into it, ate that shin against Ellenberger. He actually got hurt to the body. So I don't think his chin's as bad as it looks on paper when you see a guy, oh, you got knocked out twice, his chin. No, I don't think, I think he could eat Diego's punches all day.
Well, that's the other problem here is Diego has proven that he doesn't have the power to hurt anybody at this point anyway. I don't know how Diego wins this fight, really. So for me, it would have to be Matt Brown or pass. I looked at the under in this fight. Matt Brown knocked out in his last two fights consecutively. Diego Sanchez knocked out in his last two losses for a guy with a granite chin. Suddenly, as these guys get older, the chin's going away. They're tended not to be able to go the distance. But then the under in this fight is minus 145. I like betting unders with guys like this when I'm getting plus money, not big minus money. This is the only thing I could do is bet Matt Brown to win the fight.
All right. Yep. All right. Andre Arlovsky, Junior Albini. Arlovsky, chinny as hell, lost his last 5. You know the UFC's looking to give him his walking papers. But this Junior Albini...
Can you ever remember a guy in the UFC? Because I tried to think of this when I looked at Andre today. I was trying to think.
That one
have ever lost 6 straight
and not
got cut.
Yeah, I think it's 5 straight now.
5 now, but if he loses here, 6 straight.
For sure. And I think that's what they're looking to do. Give him his walking papers. But I think this is a fight he could win. This Junior Albini, although he knocked out Timothy Johnson, isn't a huge punch. He has great kicks. And great submissions on the ground. But Arlovsky's hard to take down. He has strong hips. And Albini has terrible wrestling. I mean, most of his fights that went to the ground, he's jumped guarding. And he's only had 1 fight in the UFC. So he's a huge favorite in this fight. I think if you're looking for a 3-to-1 dog to bet, Arlovsky's the man. It's plus 285 right now, so I put a small play on him.
Some of the things that worry me is guys change in MMA, right? I mean, you see guys evolve. I mean, Diego Sanchez used to be this devastating top game ground guy. Now he stands up and bangs with guys when he really can't box and lose. I mean, guys just evolve.
Because he can't take guys down anymore.
And guys evolve, right? And some guys are punchers now that weren't. Matt Brown, later in his career, became this Arturo Gatti boy. Yeah. So Junior Albini, I was like, man, because I couldn't figure it out too. I'm like, this guy seems like a jiu-jitsu artist. What happened that he's knocking guys out? 3 of his last 4 wins are by knockout, and it seems like whoever he's training with, his striking, it's improved a lot. He went from a pure jiu-jitsu guy, fighting in basically places where everyone does jiu-jitsu, to knocking out some pretty tough dudes. That worried me a little bit because we all know Arlovsky, if people yell too loud in the arena, he's liable to hit the canvas. And I just didn't know what to make of this fight because I think this line's really overinflated, and there's nothing people like in sports more, whether it's MMA, football, basketball, is a good story. And I remember after Junior Albini's knockout win over Timothy Johnson, and he got that bonus. Remember in the post-fight press conference, it got announced he got the $50K, and he said, my kids, we used to give them empty milk cartons and stuff for toys. They didn't have any toys. Then people said, what are you going to do with the $50K? He said, I'm going to go get my kids some toys. They play with empty milk cartons and socks as like dolls and stuff. And everyone fell in love with Junior Albini, like, oh my God, his kids play with milk cartons and socks, and now he's gonna buy him some toys with the $50K, yay, Junior. And I did too, I have kids, I thought it was a great story. But that doesn't mean I wanna lay 370.
Yeah, Junior Albini, minus 370 favorite. I think if you're gonna bet a favorite like that, go Matt Brown.
Yeah, that's right. Matt Brown in this fight, there it is, said perfectly. Matt Brown is a better value if you're going to lay a big favorite than Junior Albini, because if there's one thing we know Andrei Arlovsky can do, it's punch. He's always been able to punch.
Yeah, so he can knock anybody out.
I mean, they thought he was done a decade ago. He came back to the UFC after fighting Rumble Johnson in World Series of Fighting and won 6 straight fights over Frank Mir, Travis Brown, Bigfoot Silva. And oh, by the way, he was an underdog in every one of those. Boom, down goes Silva. Boom, down goes Travis Brown. That Travis Brown knockout was one of the awesomest rounds in MMA history.
A great fight. So yes, if you're looking for a favorite to bet, it's Matt Brown. If you're looking for a decent dog, a 3-to-1 dog, it's Arlovsky. And I made plays on both of them. So moving down, Nate Marquardt, Cesar Ferreira. And hey, another dog that might be worth betting is Nate. I think they're looking to give him his walking papers. They're looking to get him out of there. But Cesar Ferreira, he just isn't that dangerous. He's like more of a jiu-jitsu guy. I worry about Nate with punchers. Coming from Jackson's, being around for as long as he has, he's got excellent submission defense. How does Cesar win this fight?
Look, if Cesar Ferreira was minus 290 versus our friend Rick, the fight lawyer, I would take Rick, the fight lawyer. Cesar Ferreira can't be minus 290 against anybody. He can't take a punch. We've seen him get knocked out multiple times here. His striking is so stiff. He tends to be like really stiffed up in the striking game, stiff neck, gets hit flush, never moves his head, doesn't have very good fluent movement. Tends to just eat him coming in,
and I don't think he's
and he's a submission guy.
Yeah,
and he's not going to submit Nate Marquardt.
Exactly, and his wrestling good enough to get this fight to the ground.
I mean, both of these guys are vulnerable to the punch.
Definitely. And who's got the bigger punch?
Nate, for sure.
For sure. I know he's coming up from 170, but now this is a couple fights. I think he's going to be stronger than he was against Sam Alvey. The fight with Alvey was close. Alvey just used his bigger size in that fight to kind of lay on him and cage control type of victory. He did not beat him up in this fight.
Same thing.
And the Belfort fight was close, and it was a kickboxing match. Yeah. So I think Nate's another good dog to bet on. Let's see. Last time I checked,
Nate's losses are legit. Kelvin Gastelum. You know, when you look at Nate's last fight, Kelvin Gastelum, Thiago Tavares, Brad Tavares, another one, not bad. Sam Alvey, like you said, Vitor Belfort was razor close. I mean, I do agree that Nate is probably getting close to the finish line on a solid career. And while we're talking about Nate real quick, I want to get your opinion on this because I know you like Nate, and I was going back and forth with a gentleman on Twitter the other day, kind of looped you in there. So I was going back and forth with the gentleman on Twitter the other day who said Nate Marquardt is a Hall of Famer, UFC Hall of Famer. I said absolutely not. I didn't even think it was close. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, the UFC puts people in the Hall of
He
Fame
did
that
fight
have
for a title once.
who really have a big impact on
But what impact
the
did he have?
organization. Exactly.
He was another
I mean,
Anderson
if
Silva
there's just
victim.
an MMA Hall of Fame, I agree 100%. He was like 4-time King of Pancrase.
Yes.
The guy is a
Yes.
true veteran. He's been in the sport like close to 20 years. So MMA Hall of Fame, yes. But in terms of the UFC, like, he's kind of been a letdown. I remember his first fight against in the UFC. It was
I
UFC
really only
fight
remember two
91.
big fights. He knocked out Damian Maia with one huge right hand, and that earned him a shot with Anderson where Anderson killed him, and then that was it.
Look, there's no way Dana White's going to put him in the Hall of Fame. I remember from Fight Night 1, he fought Ivan Salaver in the main
yes,
event.
yes.
I remember me and
Great
Sam
fight.
Hoger had a great fight. Tyrese was up going nuts. That's what I'm talking about.
Nice.
Dana White was so happy, and then they just stunk up the arena. He was so
Yeah.
mad. Dana came up to me and he said, you know, everything your fight did for this card tonight, these guys just ruined it.
Oh, no.
So just like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's something.
And we all know things stick with
You
Dana.
you get a second chance to make a first impression. That was Nate's first impression on Dana.
Yeah.
And no way Dana's gonna put him in the Hall
That's
of
what
Fame.
I thought too.
If
No
it were up
way.
to me, you'd have my vote.
But for this fight, personally, and I don't love Nate, I'll be honest. I know you like Nate, and some of it's a little nostalgia based.
Yeah.
I just don't like Cesar Ferreira in this fight. This is a guy who can't be a big favorite. He tends to lose these kind of fights. Look, Elias Theodorou, who I think is maybe an above average, middleweight, he's pretty good. He's never going to fight for a title. He's never going to climb that far up the ladder because he's fairly one-dimensional. He dominated Cesar Ferreira in that fight. I mean,
you saw what Brad Tavares did to him in
that's
the last
right.
fight.
I mean, to me, I couldn't imagine. I don't blame the UFC for putting this fight because, to your point, the loser. What is the loser doing in the UFC? So high stakes. Winner goes on. Loser probably goes on to do something else.
And hey, you could get Nate at plus 240 right now.
At 200, I even wouldn't have bet it. At minus 200 at Ferreira or less, it's a complete no bet for me. I want nothing to do with it. But at minus 300 almost, at plus 240, plus 250 coming back, I certainly think if these two fight 100 times, Marquardt can at least win 35 or 40 out of the 100.
Well, you convinced me. I haven't played it yet, but I am putting a play on Nate Marquardt. Are you?
I'm probably gonna have I'm gonna make a small bet on Nate, and when they give me the ticket, I just want them to write on it, not $100 on Nate Marquardt, but $100 on not Cesar Ferreira.
All right. Rafael Assunção, huge favorite, minus 340 against Matthew Lopez. I really don't, any sense in laying that kind of one.
I have gone over this fight like 5 or 6 times, fully broken down every aspect of it because I want to. I'm going to admit it already. I made a small bet on Matthew Lopez already, a small one. But I want to make another bet on Matthew Lopez. But the problem is, I'm a long time Rafael Assunção fan. Like, I bet Rafael Assunção big versus Marlon Moraes. I bet Rafael Assunção both fights versus TJ Dillashaw. He was underdog in both, beat him one, lost him in one, both by decision. I like betting on Rafael Assunção. But the problem for me now is Rafael Assunção is a guy who 6-7 years ago I thought was going to be unbelievable. But he trains at his own gym with him and his brothers. Basically, it's the Assunção brothers, even though it's called like Elevation Fight Team or whatever. The only pros there were like him and the Assunção brothers. And I don't think he's really gotten any better. Now he's on the wrong side of 35, and he has so many split decision fights. I'm used to betting him as an underdog and being excited about it, but to lay 340, 350 with the Assunção, with his style and his age and his standing now. Look, Matthew Lopez isn't great, but I think he's getting better. So he came in the UFC. He had jitters his first fight, I think. Personally, I mean,
well,
maybe
he ended up on the ground with Ronnie Yaha.
That's right. And then he ended up getting gassed and ended up on the ground with Ronnie Yaha, which is, Ronnie Yaha would choke
amazing.
all of us
Yes.
out. Ronnie Yaha's 135 pounds, might choke you out. He's unbelievable.
Really
so there's no shame in that. And then he comes back with, I think, 2 solid wins, including a stoppage win. I like Matthew Lopez. I remember when Dana White looking for a fight, they went to see him. Everything about Matt Lopez I like. I like the way he fights. I don't know that there's any value here, so I don't know that I want to recommend other people to put a lot of money on this, but I already bet Matt Lopez and might bet him again just because I think this fight's going to be really close. And if it's a really close fight and one guy's 3.5 to 1 and the other guy, then it seems like there's value there.
Excellent point. Me personally not touching that one, but moving on down, Clay Guida, Joe Lauzon. This fight almost a pick 'em. I've got Guida at -120. Lauzon is +110 right now, and I think this is the perfect kind of fight for Guida, who's got excellent submission defense, and he's a grinder. He has the better wrestling. I give Lauzon an advantage with the stand-up, but Lauzon, if you want to grapple, he is all for it.
Yeah.
When have you seen him sprawl and brawl? I think this is going to come down to a grappling match. Lauzon very good on the ground, very dangerous, but he tends to fade in the later rounds. He gets tired. He's always been more of a front runner, where Guida has cardio that lasts all day, and if this fight's almost a pick-em, I think Guida, just like he did to Eric Koch, is going to get cage control, wear him down. Second or third round, start getting takedowns, avoid submissions, just end up on top. I see Guida win decision this fight, and I think the over, it might be a good bet if you could get it at a decent price.
I think what makes our podcast so valuable to bettors is that we're able to put our personal feelings aside. I did it last week. I told Boston Rob how big of a fan I am. Mark Delagrati, I still love you. But I told the bettors, we got to take the underdog here. And of course, the underdog gets home. Rob Font lost. Joe Lauzon, I love you. Represent Massachusetts. But this is, to your point, Clay Guida has actually been undervalued the last fights because the results don't equal out to how well he's been fighting. This is a guy who is absolutely dominating Brian Ortega for 2.5 rounds, gets hit with that huge knee, right at the end of the fight, and gets knocked out in a fight he was easily going to win. And he's had some other fights
and
like
look
that.
Look at his other
lately.
losses. Chad Mendez, Benson Henderson, Dennis Bermudez,
these
like
are top guys.
Of the food chain.
Yeah, and I love Lauzon, and I hope he fights for as long as he wants to fight. I can't wait to watch every one of them. He's as exciting as there's ever been. But you're not going to submit Clay Guida. These two have 33 submissions combined. They are both aces on the ground. And while I do agree that Joe Lauzon's the better fighter, the only way that they're the better striker, the only way that there's going to be a submission here is if Lauzon gets tired and Guida gets his back in the third round.
That's right.
And even then, I think in the middle of that, if they end up on the ground, I just think Clay's probably going to outwork him because he's so active throughout those rounds.
Yep.
He never stops moving.
And that's how I see this fight going. I see it being a close fight, and then Joe slows down a little, and he just ramps up the pace in the third round and wins the decision.
I think that Clay wins this fight 29-28 almost every time they fight. If they fought 10 times, Clay wins 29-28, 2 rounds to 1, like 8 out of the 10. And the fight's a dead pick'em.
Yes.
I don't want to go
No-brainer.
against Joe Lauzon. I want to root for him, but I like money more. So don't my kids. So I'm on Clay Guida here.
Another fight that's pretty much a pick-em, John Dodson against Marlon Moraes. Marlon Moraes really, really tough, but John Dodson, top of the food chain. I mean, his only losses have been to the champion, Demetrius Johnson, other than that Lincolner loss, which he won that fight. I'm sorry. That was highway robbery. I know you like Lincolner, but he did not win that. Lineker. Yeah. He did not win that fight.
Probably not.
That's a whole other discussion, but this fight's a dead pick'em. And Dodson, like, I like him in this fight. It's a pick'em. I was expecting him to be like minus 150 or even more. Marlon Moraes, very talented, but how's he, you know, he's dangerous. I give him that. He hasn't fought the same level of competition.
That's the problem. When you look at Marlon Moraes, everybody was enamored with him coming in the streak, and that's what made me hesitate with the Sun Tzu, because I just bet a Sun Tzu in his last fight against Marlon Moraes, which is Sun Tzu won. Now,
close fight.
Close fight. But the problem coming in here is Dodson's the bigger puncher. Even at bantamweight, he's still the bigger puncher.
Now is Moraes coming down?
No, they're both 135s forever. Moraes was a 135-pound champion in World Series of Fighting.
Oh, for some reason I thought he fought. No, you're right. A Sun Tzu 45. And that was Dodson fought Lineker at 45.
No, at 35.
And Lineker couldn't make
Lineker
weight.
fights 35 still.
He came down for that fight, right?
No, Lineker used to, both Lineker and Dodson
was
used to fight at 25.
Yeah.
He fought Demetrius Johnson twice, lost to him both
25.
times. Went the distance both times with the champ.
Oh, yes.
And then he lost that split decision to John Lineker again at 35 because Dodson moved up. Because once you lose to the champ twice at 25, you got to move.
I had that wrong. Yeah, Dodson used to be a 25er. Now he's fighting 35.
35er. He's not a big 35er. He's a small 35er.
Yeah. He
but he's still a big puncher.
Yeah,
he's still a big puncher.
You
I don't
making
know
a play on this fight?
I'm not. This is one of the few times where there's a pick'em fight with two great fighters, and I don't have a side. I was gonna bet the over. Because the one thing I know about John Dodson, 100% sure, is he has never been finished in his entire career, and that includes 2 fights with Demetrius Johnson, a fight with John Lineker, some fights with big punchers, fights with submissions artists. No one has ever stopped him. So I said, look, this is a fight that's probably going to go the distance unless Dodson catches Moraes with a big punch. Because Dodson's not submitting Moraes either. Moraes is too good on the ground. The only way this fight gets stopped is if it's a big punch. But then the over is minus 200. So I'm like, it's one of those things where I'm going to watch the total. If I can get, I got to pick a number in my mind that I'm comfortable at. Maybe minus 170, minus 180. I don't want to lay minus 200 in an MMA fight to go over.
Yeah.
But that would be the only way I would look. And other than that, I'm really interested in watching because I think the winner has a lot of big fights available. Jimmy Rivera, Dominic Cruz, a rebounding Cody Garbrandt. Ton of great fights for the winner. Loser has to start back at the bottom of the totem pole.
That's a good point. A fight that I'm looking for a reason to bet Sage Northcott, Michael Quiones. Sage Northcott, last time I checked, was a minus 170 favorite. And you know what? I worry about Sage against grapplers. Michael Quiones is going to make this a kickboxing match. I don't see Michael Quiones. I haven't seen too many of his fights, but he doesn't go for takedowns, and I've seen him get worked over on the ground before. Is his wrestling good enough to get, does he even want to get this fight to the ground? He seems to me like he's a striker.
He is a striker, and this guy, they picked this guy for a reason. The UFC loves Super Sage.
Yes.
They want this guy to win. With that being said, I still bet against Super Sage. I couldn't help it. And after I did it, I still said, what am I doing? Michael Quiones is 0-1 in the UFC, got knocked out. The only other tough guy he ever fought outside the UFC, Brandon Gertz, a guy who's pretty stable in Bellator.
Yeah.
Tough guy, Brandon Gertz. Brandon Gertz wiped him out. 5 of his 8 wins are by knockout. He only has 1 submission win. It was a submission off hurting someone to strikes and then submitting. I mean, this is a kickboxing match. Sage Northcott is obviously the more technical, bigger, stronger, faster, or more athletic striker. And just because it was Sage, I couldn't do it. I still bet against him, and I still took Quiones. And I don't know, you're right. After I did it, I thought about it. I said, look, this fight is tailor-made for Sage.
Yeah.
But I got nervous, and this is my thinking on it too, is after the Barberena fight, you know, they brought in another setup guy for Sage before he fought Mickey Gall. In between the Barberena loss and the Mickey Gall loss was another fight. I can't remember the guy's name because he's off into obscurity already. But they brought in another guy to fight Sage. And Sage looked more tentative. I remember against Barberena in the fight before, Sage was doing jumping, flying, spinning, flipping, crazy kicks, and you were like, oh my God, if nothing else, this guy is entertaining to watch. And then Barberena choked him unconscious, and he didn't want to do any of that spinning, flipping, jumping stuff anymore. And he seemed like a different fighter. Like, what made Sage Northcutt's must-watch TV? He was the White Ninja. And now that he's not the White Ninja, I don't know that I'm excited about it. So I bet Quiñones.
All right. Yeah, to your point, I think the UFC looked long and hard to find a winnable fight for Sage, and I think Quiñones is that guy. Quiñones is just going to stand up and have a kickboxing match with him. And, you know, I got to take Sage Northcutt in a pure kickboxing match. I'm sorry. Even at minus 170, I think it's a safe one. All right. Any other fights on the card you think there's some value on? It's worth talking about. It's worth betting on.
I think one interesting fight I did not bet personally is Tatiana Suarez, our biggest liability of the card so far. Literally, more money has come in on Tatiana Suarez, who opened minus 240 up to minus 350 against Viviana Pereira. And I don't really understand. Viviana Pereira, undefeated Brazilian fighter, really good, really strong. Seems like this is a closer to a pick'em fight. I was even looking for reasons to bet the dog at like plus 190, and now that she's plus 300, I'm wondering what I'm missing that all these big bettors are seeing in Tatiana Suarez.
Yeah, she's up to minus 320 last time I checked. Huge favorite, and yeah, like you said, Pereira's pretty tough. Vivian at plus 260 isn't a bad bet.
And then I know that Nina Suroff is Amanda Nunes' girlfriend, and she's getting a lot of publicity for it, and this line is going down. But Angela Hill is really good. Super technical in the feet, really athletic, moves great, strikes with legs, punches. She may not be the biggest puncher, but she's a real volume striker with athleticism, getting better wrestling. Look, I think if Nina can't get early takedown, she's going to get smoked in this fight. I didn't want to say anything with her teammate on the phone, but I think the fact that Angela Hill, the fact that Nina is Amanda Nunes' girlfriend and people are grasping onto that and making them bet on her is giving us a value line on Angela Hill, who maybe...
Even at minus 190.
I think she should be minus 300. I think she's the proven commodity here. Nina has a lot to prove.
All right. Another dog that might not be a bad bet, Court McGee and Sean Strickland. Court McGee just keeps fights close.
Yeah.
And Sean Strickland, 5-2 in the UFC, lost to tough guys, Kamaru Usman and Santiago Ponzinibbio, and they both went the distance. Well, I mean, Usman goes distance with everyone, but Ponzinibbio knocks people out. So he is good, but Court McGee is really, really tough, durable, has cardio for days, and almost all his fights, even his losses, are pretty close.
Everything you just said, I 100% agree with. But I couldn't pull the trigger.
Me neither.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I do agree that, and everything you said is the reason I almost bet him. But then when it came time to actually putting money on Court McGee in this matchup, I just went, you know what? I feel like it's almost throwing money away.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't do it, but not a bad dog.
You know what's an interesting one is this Marcel Fortuna fight versus Jake Collier. Look, Jake Collier has not lived up to the hype, the potential when he came into the UFC as either undefeated or one-loss fighter, and he really has been down in the UFC. But the one thing that I think is interesting, and this is what I would tell viewers to look for tomorrow, is watch. I like waiting to weigh-ins to see what fighters look like the first time they're dropping down to a weight they've never made before. And Marcel Fortuna, who's fought at 205 or bigger forever, basically, now he wants to get serious, going to make that drop to 185. Just because you can make it doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, and that's true. just look at history. Every time a guy drops down to a new weight, their
Turns
first
into a
fight there,
skeleton.
the first fight there, they're just not the same guy.
Yeah.
Not the same guy. Your body's not used to it. After the second or third fight, they always look way better than they did that first fight.
Remember, Anthony Pettis, when he tried to make 45, he looked like a skeleton, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And really, he was going to lose that fight against Oliveira if he doesn't get the submission win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So if Fortuna looks like that, if he looks all drawn in, then there could be certainly be some value on Collier, who's a legit 185er. He could bang a little. He's not bad on the ground, especially at a big price.
Some really interesting matchups, some good value. UFC Fight Night 120. Yes, I've made a couple plays already, and I'm going to wait till the weigh-ins to make a couple more, and I expect a little more movement on some of these lines. So there's some good dogs on this card and some solid lock favorites. So we wish you good luck. For Matthew Holt, Stephan Bonnar saying thanks for tuning in to the final round.
Follow us on Twitter tomorrow at Stephan Bonnar, at Matthew Holt VP. We always tweet out stuff after the weigh-ins.
Oh, and breaking news. Dominic
Thanks
Cruz,
to Ryan Quinn.
Oh, no, both Dominic Cruz and Frankie Edgar are out of their upcoming fights.
I know, I saw that.
So more on that next week. See you later.
I heard Aljamain Sterling's going to step in for Cruz versus Jimmy Rivera.
Breaking news.